Hi, my name is Michael McCready. I'm 35. I'm from the East Coast. Family's over in Georgia right now, and this is my story. In 2009, I was attacked by two dogs, and I began to experience pain that I never had in my entire life. Doctors started to give me some pain medication that I started to use to help mitigate the pain, which I was using appropriately in the beginning. And then I found that using different medications, I really started to enjoy the high that it was giving me. There was a specific medication, Tramadol, that it just gave me this euphoric high that I never felt before, and it made me numb. And so I started using it to not only mitigate the pain, but get high. Then I started to get other medications that I was using inappropriately to focus at work. Whenever I would have assignments or things to write up, and I'd have to sit at the computer for long periods of time, I was just using this medication just to dumb myself down, so to speak, and just allow myself to focus. So this continued on, and I slowly started to develop a dependency on the medication. Then in 2012, I was in a car accident that I sustained a whiplash injury that severed two sections of my spine, C4, 5, and T9-10. That was a whole new level of pain. The doctors began to prescribe other pain medications, and I started taking heavy amounts of it. Before I knew it, I was fully dependent and addicted on these medications. This started to affect who I was and started to change, where at the time I was in a relationship. It was my fiance at the time, my ex-fiance, and it started to change me so much that she could not deal with it anymore, and that ended the relationship in 2013. Once the relationship ended, I felt so much emotional pain that I was running to the medications to help suppress and hide away that pain. I just did not want to feel it. And so I never actually processed in a healthy way of getting over it. Instead, I used medications to try to numb the emotional pain along with the physical pain that I was feeling. And because I had both emotional and physical, it seemed like it got worse. So I started seeking after getting other medications, which surprisingly I was able to get so many different things, from muscle relaxers and stimulants like other pills to manage pain, antidepressants, and then some like benzodiazepines, stuff like that. It was just a snowball effect that kept taking me deeper and deeper, and I was killing myself physically. I was just taking so much to a point where after 2013, I could not live without getting high. I did not feel normal if I didn't have the medication. I would wake up and immediately take the medication just to feel normal, to begin functioning. And then it became a journey throughout the day to just try to get high. And this continued on for many years, and it started to create a lot of strain and pain in my family. I started to search for places to live, and I was spending all my money on getting more drugs than I was on taking care of myself, and I wound up losing everything. I literally lost everything that I ever owned, anything that I cared about. And then eventually my dog that I had died, and that really made things a lot worse. But what I didn't realize was that was the beginning of actually a saving grace that God was going to take me through. My dog died in, I believe it was 2015. In the summer of 2016, I connected with someone in Australia, and they wanted to bring me there. So God provided full provision for me to go to Australia. And during my time there, I want to emphasize, God literally paid for everything for me to go to Australia. I had some monies that I used to get the visa I needed. Beyond that, they paid for the plane tickets, transportation, housing, I was fully taken care of, food, and tickets to conferences. When I went to these conferences, that's when God began to deliver me. One, I wasn't able to get the medications that I needed, and I ran out of those while I was there. God began to work on me, and then I remember one day at the conference, someone praying for me, and I felt something weird moving in my stomach, where he healed my stomach, and then I felt this weird fire moving around inside of my mind, where he began to heal my mind. Not only did he heal my stomach from the damage that I did to it in the liver and all of that that's affected by the medication, but he also actually healed me of IBS, which I had since I was a child. So after he healed and delivered me from all this, I started to expect withdrawal symptoms. I had this pattern of taking medication, and I expected to start experiencing withdrawal symptoms, and it didn't happen. And I would sit up late at night. I think the worst night was I just couldn't sleep, and that was agitating me just because I couldn't sleep. But it wasn't withdrawal. I just couldn't sleep. So I wound up getting something to help me sleep while I was there in Australia, to help me with the mindset that I was in and the medication need that I thought I had to have. And that quickly ran out. And then the person that I was staying with got me a plane ticket to come back home. What was interesting was there was a supernatural grace that was on me while I was in Australia. I was not experiencing withdrawal symptoms, but once I was on the plane and I started to leave out of the waters of Australia on international waters, I started to withdraw when I was on the plane. I arrived in Los Angeles and I didn't have a place to stay. I was just at the airport. Family was no help at that time. And I just sent out an email just asking for prayer and help. And someone wound up buying me a hotel that night and a plane ticket, and my grandma sent me money, which I immediately used to go get more medication, and I relapsed. Once these withdrawals hit. If I would have stayed in Australia, I know that I would have been completely free from it. But anyway, I relapsed back into the medication, and I eventually made my way back to Georgia, and I was staying with my parents, where they did not want me. They did not want me there. And a month or two goes by, and one day I'm in a worship service, and I remember I was talking with God during worship, and he point blank said to me, he was like, "Michael, you continue back down this road, I'm not going to be able to use you. I'm not going to save you anymore." And that honestly shook me at my core and scared me. So I realized I needed to get help. So I started reaching out to some friends and family and did what I need to get help. November 26th was my first day sober. How I got out of it was I began a taper, and I started slowly tapering until I got down to 1 week where I was just taking like almost nothing at all. And then November 26th, day after Thanksgiving, was the first day sober. And I went through many weeks of withdrawals, and it was a very, very difficult time. Looking back now, I can see that God held my hand and walked me through it. Once I went through a social detox, my family, I went and stayed with my grandma while I waited to go get into rehab, where God slowly started restoring some things like sleep patterns, just very things that you take for granted. The ability just to rest, the ability to be affected by coffee and just normal food, how food gives you energy. Just these very simple things I started to figure out again, and God began to walk me through how to live a slightly normal again. And it's okay to feel hungry. It's okay to eat, because that's going to give energy. It was like I didn't understand that, because for many years I was just taking a medication to feel energy. I then went into rehab, was there for 10 weeks. God did some amazing works in me where he actually moved me into lordship. And then after that, provided provision for me to get a job out here in California, working at a national park in Yosemite. And I worked there for a year and 4 months. And during last winter is when he started to show me BSSM. I started seeing it, watching Bethel, and he told me that he was going to bring me to BSSM. So I applied, which is Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, and I applied and I got accepted. And since being here, he has provided the last 2 months of rent. He paid my full tuition. He told me he was going to pay for my missions trip. And he's really started showing me that he is good and that he loves me and he wants to take care of me. So if anybody is out there that's struggling with this, I really want to encourage you to know that God loves you and He is going to lead you into freedom if you let Him. He will set you free and He will walk you through and hold you step by step until you are completely free. You just got to trust Him. It might be an uncomfortable process, but it's well worth it.